I'm looking forward to this story. For the narrow gauge engines, several of these tiny puffers had time to share the spotlight. But of them, Rheneas was the most underused. He had all of one story to himself in Season 4, and partook in supporting roles in Season 5 and 6. Finally, though, we get a story involving him again. Which is about what, though?
I have a very important job for you, he boomed.
An important job, cried Rheneas. Oh, thank you, sir.
You are to take some school children up into the mountains. You must make sure they have a wonderful time and are back in time for their lunch.
Yes, sir.
Oh, what's the problem, old boy? Is it the fact that they have to be back in time for lunch? Or is it that your job is dealing with children? No, it was about Rheneas' confidence level and being able to make the trip exciting for the kids. I mean, riding a train is fun in general, so what else would he really have to do?
You know the mountains better than any engine, said Rusty.
But Rheneas wasn't sure his best would be exciting enough. He felt like a very little engine indeed.
Well, he isn't, but that doesn't make him unworthy of the role he's playing right now. And although I'm not sure how completely valid Rusty's claim is, I can agree that Rheneas is one of the older ones around. But that didn't mean anything to him at the moment. He thought everything they visited was dull.
It is very special and important.
I must think of something exciting to do, he puffed to himself.
This is the Valley View, said his driver.
Rheneas' face is hilarious. He looks so annoyed with how his driver is presenting the trip. Like, geez, could you make it sound any more lame? Especially when his driver says Sodor Castle is important. For what? It's not even a complete castle. Meanwhile, Rusty was with some workmen looking at some unstable lines for liability issues. But I would say having the kids look out over the viaduct is even more of a liability issue.
Must be special, must be special.
Rheneas was still trying to think of something that would make the children's trip special. He didn't know the linesman had forgotten to switch the points.
That is until that linesman forgot to do his job correctly. And of course, neither did Rheneas' driver or fireman realize it until it was too late. And being that Rheneas' coach had children in it of all things, I don't understand why they couldn't put on the brakes or something. Or back up for that matter. Instead, he just kept going in the same direction and at the same speed.
This line is closed for repairs. Bust my buffers, chuffed Rheneas. Be careful, cried Rusty. The tracks are very bumpy.
Rheneas whooshed down the mountain like a roller coaster. The children cheered.
First of all, that editing to have Rusty's face change after Rheneas passed by was well done. Second, how did I figure that was going to happen? Of course the kids would not find the trip dangerous, even though it was. Ah, innocence.
He steamed across the trestle bridge. He was going so fast the teacher nearly lost her hat. Rheneas splashed under a waterfall. The children laughed happily. And the teacher covered her eyes.
Yeah, the contrast is funny. She also looks a little sick there. I could understand why, since this episode has more Dutch angles in the last 30 seconds than John Travolta's Battlefield Earth. That's never been used in this show. Talk about a change in creativity. I just hope it's only for this story. When they finally reached the tea room station, the children were pleased and said it was their best trip ever.
Sir Topham Hatt wasn't cross with Rheneas. He was happy too. You gave the children a wonderful trip. You really are a very useful engine.
Oh, thank you, sir,
puffed Rheneas proudly. Rheneas didn't feel like a little engine anymore.
I mean, he really shouldn't if we are considering the gallant old engine storyline from Season 4. But I guess sometimes we forget those things. This was still a decent episode for a couple reasons. One being that it was a story about Rheneas, who really hasn't had much done with him. This story provided the chance for him to do something out of the ordinary, and do some comical things too. I'm just curious what Top Hat would have said if he knew Rheneas accidentally took the wrong and more dangerous line. As to what made Rheneas think he couldn't make the trip exciting is beyond us viewers' understanding, but at least he figured out in the end he had it in him all along. Although I must say, it was funny seeing Rheneas looking really annoyed with how his driver was acting as tour guide. Which leads me to the music. While this entry's music has been no different from the last number of episodes for the most part, the cue played for Rheneas taking the kids to see various landmarks was matched with his mood. The lazy-sounding synthesized trombone went really well with Rheneas' annoyed look. As for locations, we got the usual places like the Tea Room Station, Sodor Castle, Rheneas' Viaduct, and the Valley View. However, what stood out even more were the numerous Dutch angles thrown in as Rheneas flies down the damaged line. It's definitely not something I'd like to see more of, but for this occasion, it worked for the context. Next episode is Salty's Stormy Tale. Thanks for watching.